Howdy, everybody, and welcome to another Host 100 class. I am here with Salome Munyaka today. She has extensive experience in a lot of the things that you're doing right now. She's originally from Kenya. English is her second language. She's been in the United States a long time now, though. She is a Highline alum from our very own business division. She also holds a bachelor's degree in sustainable development from the University of Washington and is just now finishing up her MBA with a focus on business administration at Grand Canyon University, which is one of the primary options for us in host when we move on. So she was recently working as an assistant GM at a Kent location for Enterprise Rental Cars. And that was the culmination of 5 years of work experience that she had in hospitality. So now she has her MBA that she's moving on, and she really wants to get into teaching. And maybe you'll see her again here in host and here in the business division, right, Salome? So you're
Right.
working towards it. So that's the introduction I have for you. How'd I do, Salome?
Really, really well. You pinpointed everything. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're gonna start here with some questions I have for you. I have 8 questions, put you on the hot seat, and then after that, we're gonna have you present about your experiences.
Ooh.
So let's start nice and easy here. How do you understand the differences between car rental companies and car rental locations? For example, airports and city locations.
The primary difference is the airport locations primarily service tourists, people coming from different states, flying in. And then we have the home locations that we call the neighborhood locations, and those service the local market. So depending on where you live, you have your local enterprise location or Hertz location that you can go to, just like your local McDonald's kind of a thing. That's like that's the kind of concept they were going for. At the airport, the fees are a little higher because of taxation, paying for the port, for the airport, especially for the space. But when you go down to a local enterprise, you'll see a difference in price for the same car type you want to rent.
I like how you say the port. Like that's what I try to get us. That's shibboleth. That's how we speak the language of hospitality because it isn't just airport, it's port locations. I also noticed you said neighborhood, which is how just through terminology we can be a part of our community better. So little things I'm noticing here that make us sound more professional that we can emulate Solomon. So there are so few companies in car rental in the United States, just so few, and it completely dominates. I know you're going to talk about this in a second, but have you seen major differences in the way that like an enterprise, which also owns like National, operates and compared to like a Hertz, Avis Budget Group, I think they're called?
Yes, the biggest difference is Enterprise is still family owned compared to Hertz, which is publicly owned. Um, when shareholders are involved, decisions are more profit oriented. Enterprise is more customer oriented and to maintain their company's legacy. So they will focus on maintaining their employees, paying them better. More profit sharing is actually part of their incentive when you work for an enterprise holdings company in comparison to Hertz, where they're more driven by their shareholders, desire to make more money. So that's one of the biggest differences I've noticed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you were thinking about the industry you wanted to get into, I noticed you went car rental. And it's one thing that so many of my students don't think of car rental, yet those who get into it, they seem to really enjoy it. I'm just wondering what pulled you into car rental?
What really pulled me was I was applying for positions and they had a management trainee position, which was you had to have no experience. They'll train you right off the bat. And when I had my interview with them, they walked me through a career path of what that looks like, which is a 1 year of training into the management position, a promotion to an assistant manager position, and then gradually into a branch manager position. I love their concept because they promoted from within. So it was based on merit, not by tenure.
Mhm.
So that's what really drew me into the rental business.
Well, you stole my next question because I was going to ask about career paths, but that's perfect because it shows we're thinking the same things as people who care about car rental industry. So I just want to hit home for the students watching this that what she just said about the career path, remember all of that. That's the kind of stuff I like to ask quizzes on, quiz questions. So we're going to skip to the next question. Speaking of getting started in the rental car industry, Your very first day on the job, was it overwhelming? And what did you expect versus what you received in that first day, or maybe first week?
So this was my first official job. Before that, I worked in clothing industry, Burlington Coat Factory. So I expected to just dive into the job and learn on the go. But actually, they gave me a whole week of training, and then I went into the branch, and then I had an observation week where I observed step by step how to welcome a customer, ask them what their reservation is, check them into the vehicle, check the vehicle as well, and sign them off on the road all within 5 minutes, which is their goal for enterprise, is to get the customer in and out in 5 minutes. So it was not as overwhelming as I thought it was going to be. They have a very good training system that eases you into the job.
Great. So you thought you might be overwhelmed, but through good, effective training, they weren't, which is kind of what I've heard from so many students about enterprise, which is they know what they're doing and they have it very stratified. The next one is in Host, we spend not so much in Host 100, but in so many classes, we talk about teamwork, collaboration, and diversity over and over and over again, because you need those three things to succeed in hospitality. So, can you talk a little bit about your experiences with collaboration and teamwork and diversity in enterprise?
As far as diversity goes, that hits home with both your colleagues and also your customer base. Especially if you're working at the airport, you are meeting people from all types of nationalities, and definitely working together helps, because sometimes you have a customer who speaks a language that you don't really can relate to, and you want to be able to break down their rental experience for them, what kind of vehicle they're getting, what are the stipulations for that vehicle. So if you're working well with your teammates, there's probably one or two people that probably speak that language. So you can plug them in to help translate and make sure that you have effective communication with the customer. So you definitely need that teamwork. You definitely need that diversity, collaboration to be able to be successful in the role.
Yeah, that makes sense. My experience at Enterprise is similar. I was in Lisbon, in Portugal, renting a car at the Enterprise in downtown Lisbon, and my wife noticed they had an entire pamphlet in Korean. And she got so excited. I don't think anyone spoke Korean there at the time, but just to know that there's a pamphlet that explains the check-in process for someone who maybe doesn't speak the language, and she was able to get it in Korean, I think that's really neat. And I've personally seen Enterprise doing that. So the next one that I had here is we always talk about trends in Host 100. Our careers we aren't going to finish learning the day we graduate. We need to learn for our entire life, and we need to identify trends to know where we'll be in the future. Are there any trends that you see in the car rental industry based on your experiences, security, technology, something else that you think will be really big in the future students should be aware of?
Yes, electric cars and hybrid cars, they have
Interesting.
become very, very popular. We're seeing more and more rental companies, especially enterprise right now, is investing in getting more rental vehicles that are actually hybrid, or just electric. That saves them on a lot of things, especially on servicing the vehicles. They're more fuel efficient, they're more marketable to the public. So that's the kind of direction that they're headed right now.
Mhm. Wow, you definitely think like a manager. So my last question is about management thinking. So we talk a lot about how we have to change our mindset from that of a customer to that of a manager. And we do that often through data collection and database decision making. So I'm wondering, when you were at work and enterprise would tell you, Salome, you did a good job, or Salome, you did a bad job, which never happened, right? But it could have. So when they said that, what data were they using to tell you whether you did well or not? Was it customer service scores? Was it financial? Was it budgeting? What kind of things?
One was definitely customer service scores, feedback that they would get every week from every customer who we rented to would get a survey and would get a percentage of how well we did. Definitely the 90s were the best. So that's one way they would measure your success. Another is cost, which is pricing. So we have base prices for every vehicle, but every time you are able to, sell or price a vehicle higher than the set bar, that means you're making more profit than they anticipated. At the end of the month, they had the targets that they thought you're going to hit based on market, research, how much this vehicle is renting in Hertz versus how much it's renting in enterprise. If let's say you had a simple car, 4-wheel drive, Jeep renting for $50 and Hertz is renting it for 45 and you are able to rent it for $80. That's a profit margin that you've increased for them. So if you do that for 1, 2, 3, 10, 15 vehicles, that can be a significant bump in their profit. So that was one way that they also measured your performance, whether you did a good job or you did an average job.
Interesting. That's really good information for us to know because we're not just customers. I actually had someone tell me they don't want to work in car rental because they don't know how to drive stick. And that confused me because you don't drive cars because you work in car rental. You're not a professional race car driver, right? You have to know how to upsell, customer service, that sort of thing. All right, well, Salome, I'm going to turn it over to you and your PowerPoint, and you just let me know when to go slide to slide.
Perfect. Well, I am very excited to be presenting this to you all. So again, my name is Salome Munyaka, and I have quite some experience in the rental industry. I loved it, and I recommend it 100% as a starter for your career. Next slide for me. So we're going to start off by looking at a little bit of history of the rental industry. Just to discuss, when rental companies started, who was the first company that actually launched a rental business. We're going to move on to market share to see which companies have the highest shares as far as the industry goes. We're also going to talk about the type of departments that are within the industry. That is to give you options to look into what your interests might be. If you want to go into the rental business, you want to know all the departments that exist. Then we're also going to talk about entry-level position requirements for this kind of field. So you can see where you need to be if you want to start looking into getting a position in the rental business. And then we're going to finally finish off with who are the partners in the rental industry? Who are the people that actually maintain this industry and make sure that it's thriving and it's, making money. So those are the main points I'm going to cover with you guys. My next slide is a couple pictures of some of the companies that we have in the rental industry. Enterprise Holdings is one of the biggest ones. It does house Alamo and National. They acquired these companies along the way in their journey in the rental industry. So they all fall under one umbrella called Enterprise Holdings. So these three companies are all within one. And we have Sixt, which is actually the first ever rental company to launch and to start the industry running. So those are some of the offices they have at the airport. So if you've been at the SeaTac airport, this is actually a picture of the SeaTac airport of Sixt. Next slide for me. So with the history, like I said, Sixt was the first company in 1912 to start a rental company. And the growth in the travel happened after World War II is what led to more companies starting up, like National, which was in 1947, Europe Car, which is in Europe, 1949, and then Enterprise Rent-A-Car started in 1957, and Thrifty was 1958, and Budget started in 1958 as well. So you can see this industry, I would call it pretty young, it started back in the 50s, but it has come a long way to what it was back then to what it is today. Some companies were not able to stay afloat, so they were bought off by other companies, such as National ended up being a company that was bought by Enterprise. Thrifty ended up being bought by Budget and Avis, so they all combined. So there's been a lot of combining of smaller rental companies with those that have thrived and become bigger. And so when you look at my next slide, you'll be able to see how the market share looks like. Enterprise has acquired National and as well as, has acquired National and Alamo. Sorry, I lost my words there. Has acquired National and Alamo, and that has led to its market share growing. So as Enterprise alone, you can see that they own 43.9%. And this is data from 2017. So this might have updated with time, but they also own Alamo, which is 7%. And they also own National, which is another 7.7%. So you can basically say almost half of the market share falls under Enterprise Holdings. And then we have Hertz, which owns about 14.7%, and they own Thrifty and Dollar as well. And then Budget and Avis and through Budget and Avis are also one company put together. So you can basically see who are the top dogs. We either have Enterprise Holdings, Hertz, and Budget. We can just break them down to those three big companies that actually dominate the rental industry. Moving on to my next slide, I want to break down the divisions that you might be interested in within the rental industry. So I personally started in daily rental. So daily rental is the local neighborhood branches that you see, the ones you see in your neighborhood in Kent, Federal Way, Tacoma. If you Google Enterprise, you'll find one probably a mile away from you. That's called daily rental because on a daily basis, we are renting to our neighbors, to people who live in that area for various purposes. It could be their car broke down. It could be they're trying to go for a short vacation. So that's what they call daily rental because it's daily. And then we have truck rental, which is another division. Most rental companies, Enterprise in particular, have several truck rental offices where they rent trucks for carrying loads, moving, whatever you need them for. Mostly it's box trucks. So I just want to separate truck rental from the 18-wheelers. So we're not talking about 18-wheelers that, move stuff from one state to the other. We're talking about more box trucks that transport maybe boxes. Some of them deliver for Amazon, actually. So just little box trucks is what they specialize in. So it's not the 18-wheelers that you see on the freeway. It's one of another department that you could go into if you don't want to do daily rental. Now, to separate between daily rental and truck rental is much longer. Most people rent at 30 days at a time versus daily rental. You could rent the car for a day for an appointment, or you could rent the vehicle for a week when your car's in the shop, right? But truck rental, most of the time, their contracts are 30 days at a time, and then they're renewed every 30 days. So the customer has the vehicle longer compared to daily rental. Enterprise also has another division that they call fleet management. Now, that's a little bit different. It's a service, basically. It's very different from renting of vehicles. What they do is they offer a service to manage companies that have vehicles. What does that mean? So you could be having a company like, for example, Boeing, where they have several company vehicles that they give their employees to use on a daily basis. Now, it's very hard for a company that manufactures planes to enter into managing fleet. So since Enterprise has the bandwidth and the resources and the connections to be able to service vehicles, repair vehicles, since they have relationships with repair shops, they have relationships with car dealerships, they can be able to manage a company's fleet for them for a fee. So that's one division that I personally was very interested in. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to work in it because it's more of a business field where you go and you meet with companies and you offer the service. You say, hey, we noticed you have 30 vehicles in your fleet and we'd like to offer the service of managing how they're serviced. If they get into car accident, manage the repair process, manage a rental vehicle for your employee as the vehicle is being repaired, and also purchase new vehicles for you when you guys want to purchase new vehicles. So that's a very unique division, which I personally found very interesting, but I didn't get a chance to get my feet wet in it. And then finally, we have car sales. If you notice, especially if you've rented from Enterprise before, they seem to have the latest vehicles all the time. You'll find them with 2022 vehicles, 2021 vehicles. What they do is they end up exchanging their old fleet for new fleet every year. So they'll select several vehicles that have hit a certain mileage and put those vehicles out for sale so then they can be able to replenish with new vehicles. So they have several car sale departments There's one in Lakewood, there's one in Renton. Those are the two biggest ones. And there's one in Everett here in Washington. And all they specialize in is to get the old fleet out, which is most cases is 3 years old. Clean it, service, repair if there's any repair to be done, and then put it out for sale. Now, what Enterprise has done, I'll speak more of Enterprise because that's my background, is they have no price haggle, which means they have a set price for the vehicle. You can negotiate. It is based on the Blue Book value. So when you see the vehicle on the website, whatever price you see there is the price that it's going for, which is very good because if you're comfortable with the price, you don't want to be price haggled. Another thing they do is they only pay their employees based on the number of cars they sell, not based on the value of the vehicle. Most dealerships, when you walk in, and if you've ever tried to buy a car, you walk in, you have an idea, you're going to buy a Hyundai Elantra, and this salesperson shows you the latest Jeep, Cherokee, and is trying to outsell you on this Jeep Cherokee. You can't afford it. That's not what you're looking for. You're a student, right? You want a small Elantra, it's good, economical, but this car salesman was trying to push that Jeep Cherokee on you. Why? Because they are paid based on the value of the vehicle that they do sell to you. Enterprise Holdings doesn't do that. It's only based on number of vehicles sold. So if they sell you a Kia Soul or they sell you a Jeep Cherokee, their commission is the same. So that's one of the most benefits. If you're ever looking for a car, I strongly suggest checking out Enterprise Car Sales. It's good for students as a first experience if you've never bought a car. So those are the 4 main divisions that you could get into if you wanted to go into car rental. Next slide. So other divisions that are within the company is, of course, there's a HR department specializing in hiring new talent, creating modules for training and updating the technology for all the employees to stay updated with any changes the company has, and also employee relations, creating events to create a more engagement of employees within a company. They also have drivers. Mostly these are at the airport because you have to move vehicles around, separating vehicles that have been in accidents, vehicles that need servicing, vehicles that need cleaning. We have to have a pool of drivers who are designated to separate these vehicles depending on what needs to be done to them. And also pulling clean vehicles from the car wash, bringing them forward for the customer. So that's one of the positions that most students, when I was in Enterprise, would end up starting out in such kind of roles as part-time drivers, part-time customer service, which is also a huge department, especially at the airport. They have about 6 or 7 people at the counters to check in the customer, to go over the rental process, explaining the protection products that they offer. Each rental company offers protection options for their vehicle if someone doesn't want to use their personal insurance to cover the rental, or if they don't even have a vehicle and they want to rent and they don't want to be liable for the vehicle, there is protection products that they can purchase that can ensure that they're not on the hook if something happens to the vehicle on the road. And also receiving vehicles when customers return them. So these are, I would say, start out jobs that don't require any experience. As long as you can get yourself at the door, have an interview, show enthusiasm, you're most likely going to get a role in these divisions. They also have maintenance, which is they do on-site oil changes to make sure that the turnover for the vehicles is fast enough based on the customer base that we have. So there's oil changes on site, mainly at the airport, and also car detailing, especially for customers who have pets in the vehicles. We want to detail those because not everybody, is comfortable with pets. We have customers that are allergic to pets. So if a customer drives a vehicle and has a pet, we want to make sure we do a full car detail before we rent it out to the next customer. So these are other divisions that I've seen students, especially if you're starting out and you're looking for a part-time job. We had so many students, especially during the summertime, which is our busiest time in car rental industry, come in and work with us in any of these roles. Now, I touched a little bit on entry-level requirements based on my previous slide, but if you do want to go straight into what they call a management trainee, and this is across Hertz and Enterprise Holdings, they have a management trainee program where you're only required to have a bachelor's. And, excuse me, and the beauty of it is they're not specific on any bachelor's. When I was working in Enterprise, I worked with people who had degrees in psychology, biochemistry, English, business. They do not require you to have a specific degree, but they do require you to have a 4-year education if you're going to go into the management trainee track, which is 1 year of training. And then you can move on to being an assistant manager, and then to a branch manager, and then to a regional manager. The spectrum for that promotion is 1 year to an assistant, 2 years to a branch manager, and about 4 years to a regional manager. That's been the range as far as promotions go, and that's for Enterprise again. If you want to go into the customer service role, the driver's role, the maintenance role, they just require you to have a high school diploma. If you do have some experience in the customer service field, that's an additional plus. But they are not really particular on your experience, which is a great place to start if that's an industry you want to go to. If you are still doing your 2-year degree, you could start out as a customer service for Enterprise. And once you graduate, since you're already in the company, it's very easy for them to transition you into the management trainee because you already know the systems, you know the business. You're definitely the first person they'd want to offer an opportunity to, since you've already been with the company. So the entry requirements are simple and easy, and it's not a very hard industry, I would say, for you to get your fit in or put your foot in the door, as they would say. So if it's something that you're interested in, I can say it has a lot of potential. Now, I wanted to cover some of the partners in the rental business. Who are the people that feed this industry? Now, number one is tourists, for sure. You're a tourist, whether you're leaving Seattle to go to Phoenix or go to New York and you rent a car, you're a tourist, or international tourists that are coming from other countries. So that's the main partner for especially airports. And that's why I said the summertime is the most busiest time because everybody's trying to be on vacation. So tourists really feed the market when it comes to the airport stations for rental companies. The other one that many people might not know about is the insurance companies. Now, if you have ever been in a car accident and you opted for a rental car in your policy, then you know that your insurance company can rent you a vehicle for 30 days as your vehicle is getting repaired. So this is a partnership that a lot of insurance companies have with rental companies. And each insurance company has their preferred rental company. Geico prefers Enterprise. I know that because that's my insurance company. And so they'll send you to Enterprise first to get you a rental car. And then if they don't have availability, then they'll send you to the other rental companies. Progressive also uses Enterprise as a preferred company. So these are relationships and contracts that are negotiated periodically, sometimes yearly, sometimes 3 years at a time, to just review the rates. Now, the benefit of this partner to Enterprise is they have set rates for the insurance companies. So for example, if you were to rent Jeep, for example, Cherokee, as a normal customer, maybe it's about $80 a day. But if the insurance company is renting it for you because your car is in the shop, then they have negotiated a deal of maybe $40 a day because you're going through your insurance. So this is guaranteed money between the insurance companies and Enterprise at a set rate because it's a guaranteed customer base. And it's one of the biggest contributors to the neighborhood rental companies. They mostly service insurance customers because they're right in the neighborhood, right? If you live in Federal Way, you want to rent a car in Federal Way. So when your car is ready, then you just have to drop the rental car in Federal Way and pick up your car. Local businesses also have relationships. Boeing is one of our biggest customers for enterprise. For their customers who are driving to see clients, they rent vehicles from us. They have special rates. And then we also have repair facilities and shops. So, for example, let's say you do not have a rental option in your policy, but you take your car to John and Johnson's rental facility. They will recommend the closest enterprise to you and say, hey, we have a deal with this enterprise in our neighborhood. If you go there and say your car is being repaired at Johnson & Johnson, you'll end up paying $30 a day, versus if you go rent by yourself as an individual, it's going to be $50 a day. So they also have partners within the neighborhood of all the rental facilities, and they give them special rates for their customers who probably did not subscribe to having rental coverage in their policy. So these are the major partners. And also, they are some of other industries that really love people who have rental experience. If you have rental experience and you want to branch into working for an insurance company, that's a plus for you. If you want to get into working in the repair facilities and you've been working in maintenance in a rental company, they will definitely consider that experience relevant. So if you wanted to branch into any of these partners, coming from a rental industry background would definitely be a plus for you. And that is the end of my presentation. I hope I was efficient enough for you. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to pass them on to your lecturer, and I will be happy to get back with some feedback.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Salome. It's so amazing to have somebody who graduated, who was sitting in our exact seats just a few years ago, and now seeing what you're doing, and it's amazing, and MBA and all that sort of thing. So it's showing what all of us can go out and do if we work hard. So I want to thank you for bringing that back to your school, to your alma mater. Yeah.
Excited. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I wish all your students all the best.
Thank you. See you, everybody.
Bye.